Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Pedal Shift Project. The Pedal Shift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride. Let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/306, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedal Shift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 306th episode of the Pedal Shift Project. My name's Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining. On this edition, part 2 of day 6, we are continuing the journey. We're completing the journey, spoiler alert, to Troy, New York, and completing the Erie Canal portion of the Empire State Trail. The hills of the capital region of New York kick in, but the finish line beckons with a roof and a very dry overnight.
About 21 miles in, have about 45 to go, and now about to go over another decommissioned bridge that is, it says no motor vehicles. A lot of bridges in New York State in the last, basically within my lifetime, had been getting replaced. I'm sure that's the case everywhere. It's really interesting because what they used to do is they would knock them down and build a new one. And what I'm seeing more of now is they keep them up, they make sure that they're good enough for non-motor vehicle use, where appropriate, build a new bridge next to it for the motor vehicles, and boom, you have separate bike infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure, and apparently maybe snowmobile infrastructure. But anyways, it's really nice, and this big, wide, beautiful bridge to go across. I don't know what body of water this is. I'm going to assume it's a tributary to the Mohawk. Could be the Mohawk itself. Because it is getting bigger and bigger. The first time I crossed it, when was that? Day 3? Day 3, it was barely a creek. Now it's something else. All right, more to come. From near Amsterdam, New York, I'm going to have a moment. I am normally a ride, as you all know. There's one thing that I feel like I have to take a stance on, where I'm like, ugh. So I just passed a pack of folks oncoming, and all of them had very bright, flashing front lights, and it is 11:15 a.m. It's perfectly sunny. There is no visibility problem, and we are not on a road. I put my sunglasses on, even though we were in the shade. I don't know, man. I suppose I got to go back to first principles of ride your ride, but that's something where what you're doing is impacting others, and I don't think that is a reasonable safety precaution in these circumstances. If you're on the road, I say go for it. I think that's a different animal when you're sharing the road with motorized vehicles. But on a multi-use path where you're frankly the biggest thing, I'm not a fan. I'm just going to say I'm not a fan. All right, rant over. That's about as good of a rant as you'll get, unless you get me talking about leave no trace. So it's leave no trace up on the apex of the mountain, and then way down in the foothills, blinking lights where you don't need them. Okay, there we go. From Amsterdam, New York, going through town, and there was a slight detour around an on-ramp to something nearby town, but I am through it. I had promised myself off mic to stop at the next of the many repair stations. These are the typical repair stations that you'll see in a lot of cities, where there's tools and a big pump, because I was thinking that my rear tire had deflated enough that it was worth getting some air in there. And although it is making this bumpy, kind of rutted trail a little less forgiving, I feel like I'm rolling better. Just that little bit of extra resistance that a tire that isn't as inflated as you would prefer. And of course, on a touring bike, you can alter inflation to kind of take on some shocks for you, all sorts of different things like that. But when I'm on pavement, I would like it to tend to be a little bit stiffer, just because I'll roll that much faster. I'm hearing a squeak that is new to me, but I don't think it's consistent. I'm just steering around here. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. If anything, it appears to be in the drive. Let me just. Yeah. Seems to be in the pedaling action. So what I might do is give that a clean and a lube at some point. It's an unusual sound, which usually portends bad things. But I think for the moment, everything seems to be okay. It does seem to be pretty consistent, but we'll check in on that later. I am about 7 miles shy of the halfway point, so you can do the math on that. I'll be at the halfway point around 33 miles. That should be somewhere between here and Amsterdam and Schenectady. There is just not a lot in between those 2 points. So I think it may end up taking a more robust break somewhere in between. If there's a picnic table or some other kind of seating, I think I'll take a more robust break just to help get through the rest of this. Temperature has been really nice so far. I've been in and out of the sun, and it's just been perfectly great. The trail, other than the rutting, has been fantastic, all paved. That section that I thought was going to be unpaved, at least according to the rider GPS, that was paved. So I have been 100% paved for this entire ride so far, and I think it portends to be the same all the way, through Schenectady, past Cohoes, and then, we're in cities at that point, getting into Troy. So, yeah, a lot of potentially fast riding ahead of me, especially now with the extra air in the rear tire to compensate for my fat butt and all of the stuff that is on the back with just my sleep kit on the front. It's almost a comical amount of weight that is just on the front. So, all right, that is a good check-in. I feel like a little bit. Let's see, what is it? 11:40 a.m. So we're doing great on time as well. Not a super early arrival, but earlier than last night by a lot, which makes some sense. All right, more to go. I am on the Mohawk Hudson bike hike trail. Holy smokes. Brand new. Like, you can almost smell it. Brand new asphalt. Wow. What a... Pull that mic up a little bit better for y'all. Wow. I mean, it is... I'm only 9 miles away from Schenectady, and I was like, do I take a break now, or do I just push on? Because I remembered it very fondly. There was a park in Schenectady where I broke off, and it had beautiful views of the Mohawk River. And I thought, well, that would be a nice place. And then once I got on this thing, I was like, oh, there's no question I'm going to just bomb through this. This is going to be a very fast ride, I think, barring it changing, because if it's a surface all the way, holy smokes. Yeah, the big takeaway, I think, of today is, while there are certainly paved portions that are rutted and a little bit of a tooth rattler, it is not, by far, not the norm. And there's some really tremendous, really very impressed with what has happened in the intervening years since I first rode this. I was on the road a lot, and now large portions of this are off-road, which is tremendous. Once again, good job, New York State. More to come. From just outside of Schenectady at the Hungry Chicken Country Store, a recommended. I got a Coke float, which was absolutely perfect, and a quiche, which was great, which I ate half of, and will have the second half probably for breakfast. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm cruising just fine. about 2.5 hours, I think. Maybe 2, depending on how fast the trail is until I get to Troy. If that's the case, then, we're really doing good today. And after what felt like a little bit of a slow start, I think that the favorable weather has been, favorable. So, yeah, bike's performing well. That sound that the drivetrain was making has stopped. So I assume maybe there was something that was a little bit of grit or something that got caught in the chain. I'll take a closer look at that tonight. Depending on if I've got the bike in the room with me, that may or may not be able to happen, but I will definitely be giving the drivetrain a look-see and at least a lube, if not a decent chain clean to the extent that I can. Because after today, things get, as I mentioned at the top of this episode, things get very, against my nature, very unplanned for 2 days. It's basically like I'm going to be camping in 2 places. I don't know specifically where yet. They're going to be stealth camping. Unless I change my mind, which is always possible. I may, end up hoteling it or something. And then I roll into Manhattan if they, assuming all of these things work out. Once, as I mentioned before, I get a little bit further south, probably at least a full day's ride south along the Hudson River. Then I have fast forward options again, which I'm hoping not to have to take. But with Thursday being the rain day that I've got on my radar, who the heck knows? So just keeping all the options available. It's a chess game. Talked about that earlier. Off to Schenectady, and this was a good extended break. I think I've got enough in me to just power through and just do minimal water breaks here and there between now and the end of the day. Probably in the 70s and in the sun. The other thing that I did, I dried out my sleeping bag, my down bag, and it seems like it's fine. It did not get soaked by any stretch of the imagination. I think just there was some exterior moisture on it, so that seems to be dealt with. The tent is still in its bag, and I will be airing that out in the hotel room. That I find that tents tend to dry out pretty easily in a hotel room overnight, so that'll be my intention. And then, of course, we're going to do some flipping around of bags for Thursday if I'm going to be riding in the rain. Okay, that is that. I think I've repeated a lot of things, which is my way, but that's what these journals are all about. Like, where's my brain? You don't want to know. More to come. From the SUNY, State University of New York, Schenectady Community College in Schenectady, New York. I just thought I would give the shouts to the school here. Just past Gateway Park, which was the place that I had referred to earlier with the beautiful view of the Mohawk. But just sort of motored through that. I already got a picture of that back in the day. It doesn't look any different. I am, let's do a mile check here. 23 miles to Troy, specifically to my hotel. So we are making great. This is also where I will be in a matter of meters, if you will, departing from the route that I took back in the day. Back then, I took New York Route 5 all the way to my final destination. I am going to be continuing to follow the trail, which I'm very excited about, because that's going to mean I get to see more river, more everything. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Feeling strong, bike's good. Schenectady is Schenectady. Nice looking town. Don't know much about it. Literally only the second time I've ever been here. Both times by bike. I guess I suppose I drove by it, through it when I had the rental car last time. So maybe it's the third time, but hard to count that last time twice. All right, enough of me meandering mentally at least. Enough of that. Moving on. We are under 20 miles to the finish line. And the finish line, incidentally, is at the junction of, or the confluence of, the Mohawk River and the Hudson River. So it should be a beautiful place to wrap things up for the day. And the transition to the second part of the tour, or the third part, or the fifth, I don't know. It's a transition to a new part of the tour. What I'm doing while I ride is practicing my spotting of stealth camping spots and, I'm just going by a place right now where it's like, anywhere in there. Yeah, it's just like there are lots of opportunities, not always along the trails, but close to them. One thought that I've always thought, it's probably trespassing, but nobody's going to find you there near power lines. Here's an example right here. Now it is posted, no trespassing there. But that's one that is probably a good option in a pinch, depending on what your standards are. And yeah, so it's feeling pretty good about the possibilities down the line of it. I think my eye for it is there. And, then being smart about timing and getting in late and getting out super early, all the usuals that we've talked about on the pod. So kind of taking a practiced eye as we go along here. One thing that was a bit of a surprise, and I guess I just didn't look so closely on the map, but I thought the trail was going to have Mohawk views the whole way, and it's quite the opposite. It's very wooded. We're finally away from the suburban elements of Schenectady or whatever town that I was going through. A lot of new construction. So yeah, there's not much riding to go today. It's starting to get, I'd call it warmer than warm. So I'm increasing my water intake just to make sure. I feel like I've had quite a bit today, quite a bit more than yesterday, but probably not as much as I should. But how do I say this without being gross? The indicator that one gets about your hydration level is coming in clear. So that's probably good. Oh, this is a terrible hill. So I'm going to hop off and let you all go because I'm going to take a break first. Dude, from somewhere, I have never had steeper hills in my life than what I've just had to push up. They were way too steep to ride up, even in my lowest gear. And they were not like mountain pass long, but they were pretty long. I'm up at what I hope is the top here at GE Global Research at One Research Circle. Look that up on a map. Holy crap. There was no topo or no elevation info in my right with GPS route. So I had no idea that was coming. Holy smokes. That was tough. Yeah, okay. It looks like it's going to be a bit of a coast now, so that's good. Yeah, so obviously this is going to take me longer than I thought, but it's all good. It's very pretty up here. You can get a nice vista, beautiful trees. Yeah, pretty awesome. Although I am smoked. Holy smokes. All right, more to come. Well, now I understand what all the climbing was for. What a panoramic view. Took both just a regular shot of the bike and then a pano. I hopefully didn't get any thorns in the tires here. Doesn't look like it. That would have been a prime spot for it. Maybe not the greatest of ideas, but what a beautiful view of the Mohawk River from up here. We're right next to a Department of Energy nuclear research lab. Looks like it's run by the U.S. Navy, and lots of no trespassing signs. I think those are the ones you really want to pay attention to. But what a gorgeous view up here. Yeah, stunning. This is worth the price of admission for today, even with all that crazy climbing to get up here, because now looks like we're working our way back down. And yeah, so as we close out the day, just a beautiful field. In the fall, this will be stunning. I'm a touch early for the foliage, but I'm getting the probably slightly better weather as a result of it. But holy smokes, what a beautiful way to close out summer. Meteorological summer, or astrological summer, I guess it is. Ends tomorrow. I think tomorrow is the first day of fall. So we're making the transition. What a beautiful day. All right, off we go. We are 10 miles out, and I've been fighting a nasty headwind this whole time, like in a way that it's just, I need to take a break. So wiping the sweat from my brow, listening to the dulcet tones of somebody mowing their lawn here in whatever town this is. I think we're getting close to Cohoes, if we aren't already. And, isn't that much better? Yeah, I think that my phone is relatively low power, as is my watch. So I am probably not going to do any more recordings for the last bit here until we get to our final destination. So, I'm ready for the end of the day. It's been a good ride. Very happy with it. But this was a little bit longer too, closer to 66 if memory serves, 67. So, more miles than I typically do. And I'm feeling it, but we're almost done. All right, more to come. All right, I lied. Had to record at this point. I am at the very end of the east-west. I'm at the sign where you turn left to go north to the Canadian border, turn right, you go south to New York City. I will be turning right because that's where I'm going, but this is a huge junction and it's in the middle of like an industrial park. It feels like it should be a bigger deal, but I guess not. Oh well. Yeah, all right. Next stop, Troy, New York Hotel. And just like that, we are in Troy, New York at the Best Western Plus. And I have a beautiful view of the window to the lobby. All right, cool. I do not pick hotels because they are the fanciest or the best, but I have picked 2 hotels that have allowed me to bring my bike in the room, for which I am eternally grateful. Crossing the Hudson felt really, really great. Ran into a group from Montreal that was continuing south to Albany. That was a lot. That section, that last 20 miles was hilly and slow and took a lot more energy than I was anticipating. I burnt every ounce of that Coke float that I had. So yeah, that was something. I'm going to grab some dinner here in town. There's a place called Dinosaur Barbecue, which was a Syracuse original, also is now in New York City and Rochester and elsewhere. It's relatively famous. I'm going to see if I can find something to eat there that doesn't involve meat. But if they have something that I may set aside my non-meat eating ways for this one time if I so choose. I'm not a pure vegetarian, but this would be the place to not be at one. All right. Well, any final thoughts for you all? I would say that today went better than I expected. It was harder than I expected. And I'm feeling a little ambivalent about the next several days because there are such mysteries. I am such a creature of habit when it comes to planning. And although I have planned where roughly I want to do some camping the next few nights, I know I've got some weather on the way and some other things that are intervening. So I think the plan is to get to New York City. Do I get there all by bike? We'll see. I would like to hope so, but I think a lot is going to depend on energy, ability, and I think weather to a certain extent. So that was a day. This was an episode, and we'll see you next time.
Statistics. Miles biked, 66.9 miles. Steepest climb, 9.6%. It was steep. Steepest descent, even steeper, negative 16.5%. I don't know how the app figures this out, but it does somehow. Probably math. Unnecessary flashing lights pointed at my eyes, 5. Still a little salty on that one. Canal trails completed, 1. Flats, 0. And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedal Shift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedal Shift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community. Expanding into live shows and covering new tours. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one-shot and annual options. If you're not into the small monthly thing, check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lean, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittus, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadas, Chris Barron, Mark Van Ran, Brad Hipwell, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Bettinati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joaquin Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Hankel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Jody Zeranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Biggle, Greg Middlemiss, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latoile Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Ronald Paroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBlanc, Ari Messenger, David Grotke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lico, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCullough, John Hickman, Carl Presseau, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Michael Lazuski, Hank O'Donnell, David Zanoni, David Weil, Matthew Sponsella, Chad Reno, Spartan Dale, Carolyn Ferguson, Peggy Littlefield, Lauren Allensmith, Eric Burns, Thomas Pearl, Darren McKibben, Richard Stewart, Dave Fletcher, Jack Smith, Luke Parkinson, Ryan Patterson, Sarus Faravar, John Gardner, and Sam Scruggs. And thanks also to all past and anonymous folks for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedal Shift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedal Shift Project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.